Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is going to be a brilliant session called Dancing with Dragons, which I think is a bit fanciful. How to get a commission in China, I think, rather more useful to everyone in the room. Hopefully, we're going to give you some tips on how to do that. China. What can you say? It's everywhere at the moment. You know, you've got Hong Kong, we've got Donald Trump waging a trade war, and of course, we've got Huawei. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but hey, you know what I'm talking about. So China is very much in our lives at the moment, and particularly in the world of television. You know, it's the fastest growing economy in the world. It'll soon be the biggest economy in the world. So the question for all of us is, how do we get into China? Now, my name's Nick Catliff, I work at Lion Television. We've been working in China for about 15 years, which is a lot longer than most. And we love working in China. It's been a brilliant bit of business for us. It's also been quite an adventure. For every opportunity, there is a challenge. And a lot of them are cultural challenges. So I have a wonderful panel here today who hopefully are going to break down some of those cultural challenges. Now, I'll leave it to them to introduce themselves in a bit more detail. But from the left, we have Jin Dong from Zespa, who are our sponsors as well. We have Wei Li from JSBC. And we have Julia Song from 127 Wall Entertainment. So let's start with you, Jin. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you, Nick. My name is Jin Dong. I'm the chairman of the Zespa Media Group. I'm very honored to be the sponsor of the session too. So we are a group of production and licensing companies based in the UK and China. We produce, we license, and we co-produce as well. So in the past 8 years, we've been working closely with UK partners and licensing and co-producing, co-developing content. And we have our own independent production house in Beijing, and we produce primetime shows for TV, VOD, across-board broadcasters in China.
Willie.
And my name is Li Wei, and I'm currently based in the Golden Dreams Media and Communication Company Limited, which is the UK subsidiary of Jiangsu Broadcasting Corporation, JSBC. And JSBC is a broadcaster based in China. So we are like a traditional broadcaster, and so we've got TV channels, radio frequencies, plus other businesses. But we also do a lot of production by ourselves. We've got our own production team as well as a distributing team. So here in the UK, we do a lot of co-production projects with our UK partners, particularly with Lion TV. So we are looking forward to do more here in the UK and to explore the global market together with you. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Julia. I work for a relatively new content financing and production company called 127 Wall Entertainment. It is based in Hong Kong, but I'm based in Beijing. So recent years, we've done a lot of our projects through our equity investment with the Ink Factory here based in London. We have a slate financing deal with them. So projects we've done together, recently includes last year's The Little Drummer Girl with Florence Pugh, who also did start with The Rock in Fighting with My Family, a feature film. Also, we did, we also financed Ang Lee's film Billy Lin's Halftime Long Walk and some documentaries, including Malcolm Clark's Better Angels, which is about US-China relationships. And we also have a doc we're working now about Burgundy Wine. So basically, I'm on board for the company to develop co-production projects that's related to Asia or China.
And in terms of genre then, you're specifically feature films or are you a wider range of genre than that?
Feature films, drama series, and documentaries. Documentaries mainly in documentary films, so feature docs.
Feature docs,
yeah.
Fine, okay, got that. A little bit of housekeeping, which I forgot, but I'll come back to, is first thing is we're taking questions. We're going to have about a half-hour session now where we talk. There's going to be a 10-minute session where we're taking questions from you. And those questions, I'm told, you have to use the app. There's the app, which I slightly struggle with, but that's probably a reflection of my advanced age. But please do use the app. And if you get really stuck and you're as useless as I am, there will be a microphone available. But please give it a go on the app and it'll pop up on this little screen here. In terms of the structure of the session, as I say, we've got 30 minutes conversation, 10 minutes questions, and then Jean has got four representatives from four fantastic Chinese scripted companies who are here at the festival. She's going to present them to you, what they do. You may have met them already. If you haven't, they will be available for conversations afterwards. So that is the format. Slightly unusual for this, so we're broken into three distinct parts. But let's set the scene. China, from the outside, and I know this from experience, can look a little bit impenetrable in terms of I think we all know, if you work in the UK, you know who Channel 4 is, you know who Channel 5 is, you know who everybody is. It's a small world. Then you work in the States, and again, it's pretty clear what's going on. China, I think, is harder to get your head around. So starting with Jean, could you just give us a sense of how the market's changing and how it's moving from linear broadcasting into streamers and so on, and what that means for people pitching into that market?
Sure, yeah. Just to set the landscape of China as what's happening, what's out there. In China, in the traditional TV space, we have CCTV, which is the big brother of the TV world. They have under them over 40 channels. So they're the state-owned media organization. CCTV stands for China Central Television. And after that, we have the satellite channels, such as Jiangsu TV, and they are more commercial, and they are each based in a province, so we also call them provincial satellite channel, and they're broadcast nationwide. And then we have the big new emerging giants of the VOD platforms. We call them BAT, stand for Baidu, Alibaba and Tencent. So these are the giants, and they each not only they have their online streaming platforms, they also have their e-commerce, social media platforms, which is much more multimedia. And after that is more youth-oriented platforms and media, which is purely mobile platforms where people can consume content in snacks, in bite chunks. So vertically short videos and series are getting more and more popular. So so that's the kind of landscape overall. And they work separately and they also work together, which is an interesting phenomenon. So we could talk a bit more in.
Well, explain specifically how that works, because that always surprises me, the relationship between the streamers and the linear broadcasters. And with a particular piece of content, what can happen to it?
If it's really premium content, they do collaborate to air it together. They each could be the exclusive TV broadcaster or exclusive online broadcaster, and they premiere it together. So like the equivalent of Game of Thrones for the next season, they could just release it together and everyone would be watching it on TV, on their mobile, iPads. And that makes it much more of a phenomenon. Everyone will be talking about it, which is beneficial for all the platforms involved.
Yeah. Lee, so from your perspective, working within a company which has got a traditional broadcaster in it, how is the landscape changing for you?
Yeah, I agree with what Jean just introduced. It is changing very fast and changing a lot. And as a traditional broadcaster, nowadays we do work a lot with those those streaming platforms. And like you said, sometimes for some very attractive content, we also work with those platforms and to do the premiere together. Or sometimes we even distribute our own products to those platforms. And also we are also trying to develop our own streaming services, just like the BBC iPlayer. We are also doing our own online services. So yeah, it's changing very fast, and like we traditional broadcasters, we have to face the challenge and to work together with all the other possible partners.
And how scared are all the traditional? I mean, again, you look at the UK, and I'm sure they're all in different rooms around here saying that everything is great, but all the traditional broadcasters here are pretty terrified of what's going on, because they can see that the old certainties are going, ad revenue is challenged, their market, people are deserting them for the streamers. Is that a similar pattern in China at the moment?
Well, I think we see the trend, and those platforms are getting more and more popular. But meanwhile, as a traditional broadcaster, I think we are still doing well, and we still have quite loyal audiences. And meanwhile, we also try to work very hard with these those platforms, so as to, we work together and we negotiate about those different contracts with them, so that everyone can have his or her own share. So I think rather than competition, we would like to see it as a kind of cooperation.
Okay.
And also we do a lot of our own content production.
Yeah.
That is also one of our advantages, so that sometimes we can distribute our content to these platforms, or maybe later we can develop together. So there are all kinds of possibilities, just to be flexible and to, the market is there and we just work together with them.
Okay. And Julia, from your perspective, bringing in finance and so on, how is that market changing for you?
So my current company, 127 Wall, we finance, like the projects I mentioned, they're mostly targeted towards an international audience, which is what I think a lot of the Chinese platforms are wanting to do these days. So instead of, before the stage one is where they buy these big Hollywood studios, and you have like these A-list Chinese actors in random movies. So we're moving from that stage to the second phase where you actually produce. There's this big word out there, it's called geoculture stuff. So you produce your local content, but it's aimed for international audience with an international message, a story that can transcend cultures. So when it comes to us, that's the kind of projects we're looking for to finance. So we don't really do pure local Mandarin language, local stuff. So it has to be something that appeals to Western audience as well. And for financing business models, it's different as, like what they said. If you work with an independent production company or you work directly with a platform, like Tencent, Youku, or iQIYI, there are different financing models. But for us, usually we do an equity investment and take on a global return.
And really for all three of you, how much are you looking inwardly at China as your key market, and how much is China looking outward to get Chinese content or Chinese funded content or Chinese co-produced content to the global market? How's the balance changing there?
Well, it goes both ways now.
Yeah.
In the past, traditionally from Zespot, we used to license entertainment formats that we produce it for Chinese audience, and Chinese market is huge, and we have 1.4 billion audience, so it's a big enough market, and that's done quite well. But then also now China is producing good content as well. From mainly, I think, scripted to non-scripted. So, and also the government is encouraging people to go onto the world stage and then to offer their content to the international audience as well. So that's also happening as well. And I think what Julia and her company is doing is very smart. It's also, producing world-friendly Chinese stories or elements, stories that have China elements.
It's interesting you say that, because us as a producer and partner with Chinese companies, we are finding for Chinese content, if you get the right content, there's quite a lot of Chinese money comes to it. But the deal is you then find global platforms for it. Is that kind of what you're finding too?
Yeah, and
to get
there's
the story
a
out.
balance though. Yeah. We don't want it to be funded purely for the benefit of the funder.
Yeah.
And if it's brand funded or government funded, we need to, as producers, we need to retain our integrity to make quality programs. So finding that balance in between. Yeah.
And where does JSBC fit into this sort of making it for the Chinese audience, making it for the global audience?
Well, I think for now, we are looking very much actively into the global audience, into what they need. That we co-produced a number of projects with Lion TV, and all of these programs, they were broadcast on our own channel as well as on an international channel such as BBC World News and Channel 4, other international channels. So for us, we think that we should really look at the global market. For the Chinese market, we are pretty much confident in it, but as for the global market, we really want to explore it more. And how to do it, we need to collaborate with those international players. And that's why we focus a lot on co-production. And for example, the documentaries as well as dramas, we do quite a number of co-production projects with our international partners. And as for the entertainment format, I think many of you might be aware that nowadays China is not buying a lot entertainment formats from other companies. Instead, we do our own innovation, our own development, and we even nowadays are selling some of our popular formats to international companies. But it does not mean that there is no opportunity for those international format companies or international creative people during our own innovation, our own development, we need a lot of help, advice, consultancy from these international experts. That's what we have been doing in recent years. And for example, we innovated our own entertainment program a couple of years ago, and we actually had a lot of help from some US experts, US creative people. So,
I mean, that's interesting, that's help. But at the same time, I think what I want to move on to is this issue of government and politics. I mean, two things there which interest me. One is that the government's encouraging Chinese media organizations to get the message out, to look globally. So there's government encouragement. And also on the format side, there was a kind of ban on buying in foreign formats. What, 3 or 4 years ago, is that right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a different landscape. I mean, I don't know who wants to go there, but politics, you do feel the hand of politics and of government when you're working in China. I mean, how does that affect what you're all doing?
Very much so. Well, in China, so from the state-owned broadcaster to satellite channel to online, they're all governed by the government. So the government has a pretty strong say in what they could put out there for people to watch. So for us, as producer, we always need to watch what the government is saying or going to release as new restrictions. So as you mentioned, 3 years ago, the government released a ban on international format, as some of our colleagues here felt very keenly at the time. It was, so each channel could only show 2 internationally adapted format per year on the prime time. So that really cut down all the output and the format international business. So as Wei Li was saying, then what the government wants to do, they're not just killing this they don't want to kill the industry. They just want to say, like, come on, have some own creativity. Don't just keep relying on imported stuff. Can't you think of clever ideas to make entertainment programs? So, and it worked, I have to say. And there have been lots of really interesting, innovative programs came out of Chinese local production since then. So it's always the government takes a bit of a parenting role. They said, come on, don't stop doing that. You can do better. You should do that. Also, there is a bit of political agenda to keep the society stable by not introducing too many ideas into people's head. So but they do control a lot.
It's a fine line, isn't it, between being a very go-getting entrepreneurial world, but also at the same time quite controlled. Would that be fair?
Yes, yeah. We call it dancing in the shackles. That's what we do. It's a good test of our timber as producer. So we do creative stuff, even when we're restrained.
But culturally, I mean, I don't know, it's very different, isn't it? Because I mean, this whole festival is about people being chippy and difficult and saying things that governments don't want to hear. If you do that in China, how long are you going to be in business?
Or we'll be in a bit of a pickle.
That's kind of the answer I was going for. Yeah, indeed. It is very different. I mean, certainly from my perspective as a producer, there are subjects we're in business with, as you say, we're in the business of making really good television that's journalistically credible, but at the same time, there are places we're not going to go. And we know that, and that is different. I think, we're not about to suddenly suggest a travel show in Tibet. That's just not going to be a good idea for us. So it's a different world, I think, from that point of view. Julie, got anything to add?
I think just, it is heavily regulated, but I don't think, producers in the UK or in Europe should be scared, because you just roll with the punches, and then there are always ways around it. And also, for example, because I used to do acquisitions for drama at Youku, so when they censor foreign content coming into China, there is a different standard for that. So recently, a lot of the strict regulations, they mostly relate to local drama stuff, because people know, dramas coming from the US or the UK, the culture is different. So they expect some of the content to be different and more edgy, and some of them are okay with it. But there is a red line that you don't go through. But so just talk to your friend or someone that you know in China, and then help them, give them your pitch or, like a trailer, and then they'll probably help you.
Okay, fine. Okay, so moving on from politics, done politics. Now, we might come back in the questions. So, Julia, specifically, just in terms of practical things for would-be producers or co-producers, what are you looking for, particularly the script, well, across it, what presses buttons for you that work in terms of content?
For us, like I mentioned before, it's all about co-production. So it's about telling really good stories to the international audience. And like I said, we don't really do local language. So our projects are mainly shot in English or developed in English scripts. So projects that we're developing, some of them I can mention. There might be a sequel to The Night Manager 2 that's set in Asia. We're working on that one. And then China related, we have one feature film and a drama series in development that's based on a real historical event 100 years ago that relates to Europe. I don't know. And I can't really say much more.
Well, that's good. That's a hint. Sounds good.
Yeah. So stories that's interesting that, that
the cross borders,
everybody.
basically.
Right.
Fine. Okay. Jean, what would you recommend? What should
scripted.
they be pitching?
Yeah, we're also very much in the space of scripted. Just the aforementioned ban on the entertainment format, but there's no ban yet on scripted format. So and people are willing to pay good money for good stories, and good stories can travel. So, for example, we represent the Agatha Christie Limited in China, so in charge of getting all her work adapted into films and TV series. And we've already signed 2 major deals in China, and currently scripts have been written in Chinese, based in the Chinese historic background with Chinese characters, everything adapted into Chinese setting.
That's brilliant.
So yes,
that's in Shanghai, yes. Was I allowed to say that? Sorry.
Well,
it's not in Shanghai.
Well, it's not going to be a moustachy, stocky Belgian man. I can say that, but yeah, it's going to be a dashing Chinese detective.
It'd be brilliant.
So yeah, that could work.
It will work, I'm sure. And you've got a tape to show us, is that right?
I've got something to show in the past what Zesper has done.
Sure, let's have a look.
In terms of entertainment.
Okay, so can we have the Vesper Entertainment tape? I mean, a real range there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, quite a range. As you can tell from the start, we're doing talent shows, primetime entertainment shows, variety shows, and then later when the format ban landed, we started working with UK production experts to produce local shows, and that worked very well. So yeah, so we are a bit of a UK-China hybrid company anyway. Yeah. So it's great to work with both sides of the talent.
Okay, and so Wei Li, coming to you with JSBC. Let's talk specifically about the co-production models you've talked.
Sure.
Again, you've got a tape. I don't know whether you want to show it first or last. Or how do you want? Do you want to show the tape and then talk about it, or
maybe first I'll talk a little bit about.
Okay, fine. You talk first,
and then we can see.
Yeah. Okay.
VG. So yeah, for co-production, we have been doing a number of co-production projects, particularly about documentaries with our partner here, Line TV, as well as some US partners such as A&E. So the model is, from the financial perspective, it'd be quite flexible, and we are open to negotiate different financial models with our partners. And as for the content, currently we think that if the content could be about China, whether it's history, culture, or current affairs, we would prefer this because, if it is something about China, we feel like more confident to contribute to it. And as for the working model, we have our own producers, our own crew working together with the foreign crews. And for example, when we do Tales from Modern China, we've got our own cameraman, our own producers working together with those from the UK. And I think this model worked very well. And, it's like a true collaboration of the 2 teams rather than we just relying on the UK team or relying on the China team. And then as for the market, we hope that our programs can be broadcast on international channels as well as on our own channels because, we want to be global. So our content should be global content. We should, not only the Chinese audience we should we should also look at the international audience. So that's why we think that this kind of collaborative model really works for us. So to summarize, like the financial model, flexible, content preferably about China, and market is the global audience.
Great. Let's play the tape.
Thanks.
I mean, that's a great reel. Obviously, our part in that was Tales from Modern China. And I think I absolutely echo that working in China, again, we've been doing it for 15 years or more, is that whole thing of finding really good partners. If you don't have good partners, you're not going to get anywhere. But when you do have them, they're great to work with. And as you say, we've got combined crews. That, when it was first sort of suggested to me, struck me as a recipe for disaster. All the language barriers, all the cultural barriers, and they're there. But actually, once you get into it, it seems it works very, very well. We've shot all over China with a number of different partners using local Chinese talent, and they're fantastic. And goodness me, they work very, very hard, and they work extraordinary hours, which is quite an eye-opener for us. And I think the other great thing about working in China is that in the UK, you go, oh, God, I've got 1 million viewers on Channel 4, that's great. Well, you've got a good show in China, you get 100 million viewers, and somehow that really cheers you up. It's fantastic. But just to wrap up before we get into the questions, what would the big tips be, the broad things that we or the audience need to know about working in China? What have you got to bear in mind if you want to set sail and start doing business there?
My advice would be for our UK colleagues to be flexible. This is something we found we tend to struggle a bit when we work with international partners, because we mentioned the political climate and everything. In China, it's quite volatile. So, and we take a lot of explaining for our UK partner to understand and appreciate it. And sometimes we use the metaphor that it's like the weather in the UK. You can't predict, and so don't ask us as in like why yesterday you told us to bring an umbrella and today I need sunscreen. It just happens. So please be flexible.
Yeah. Willie?
And I would say like try to understand China. I'd rather recommend, say, if you want to work with Chinese colleagues, so first maybe you go to China to visit the country. You can like wander on the street. I promise you it could be very safe there. And also taste the food, to hug the pandas or whatever you can do in China. Then you make some friends there and gradually understand about its country, its people, its culture. And then during this kind of understanding and friendship, you will find your collaborative projects with your partner and find your trustworthy partner there. So try to understand the country and the culture.
Julie?
Yeah, I would say be patient. Patience is very important when you work in China. From work ethics, like people not replying your emails, so just wait. Keep calling and then keep pitching your stuff to different platforms, because there's just so many opportunities out there. You never know when you can hit it one day.
Great. Okay. Lovely. Well, we're now going to go over to questions, which are coming on the app, and they're all coming in. First question, actually, funding models. In the UK, in the US, and Europe, wherever, we all kind of know what we're doing. You pitch to a broadcaster, you may put together a co-production, but usually it's pretty straightforward. They give you the money, you make the show, and you all fall out about cash flow and budgets, but that's basically what happens. In China, it's different. Who wants to talk about different funding models and what you might bump into? How are shows paid for?
I could talk about the digital platforms.
Yeah, great.
From my experience at Youku. So this relates mostly to drama, to scripted. So basically there are 3 different models. One is full acquisition of primetime satellite TV dramas, or when you sell a UK or US show into China, it's basically a flat fee, a flat license fee per episode. Also, if you do co-production or if it's a local drama, then the platform will usually pay like 20 to 30% to get you started, and then after the production finishes and then it gets on air, then they'll pay. And then they'll pay the other half in different installments. And then if you sell a movie to an online digital platform, then usually you do a revenue share based on the number of clicks. Yeah.
Okay.
And TV broadcaster.
Yeah, well, for us, as I said, the financing model can be quite flexible. Sometimes we just fund it independently, and sometimes we like co-funding with our partners. So we are really flexible in this area. But of course, these different funding ratios also lead to a different, like for example, share of the profits or the distribution rights, blah blah. But sometimes I think, well, sometimes we will expect a certain amount of fund from our international partner. Well, I think it is, well, on the one hand, it is about money, but on the other hand, it also shows like our partner's commitment to this project, which is like, well, I would say it's more like kind of commitment and your sincerity, your confidence in this project.
Yeah, and we'd certainly expect to do that. I mean, you know, we're used to co-producing lots of places, and you know, bringing money to the table is obviously part of it. Yeah, yeah. Jean?
Yeah, actually,
talk about the work around brand integration.
It's from our producer's point of view, we sometimes just go straight to the brand. We go straight to the sponsor, because in the UK you get the platform get the sponsorship, advertising, and you commission. But in China we meet directly with the advertiser. We work directly with advertising companies and agencies. So it's kind of brand funded program. Sometimes according to their brief, or sometimes we pitch them an idea, and then together we pitch to the commissioner. And normally when we have the money on the table and a good program, they normally say yes. So this is entertainment program. So yeah, in China this is done in a much more pragmatic way. But although in recent years for traditional TV, the advertising revenue is declining, people putting less money in sponsorship. So that makes us producers struggle a bit, because sometimes sponsors say, I'm just putting down 1 million, though it's a 5 million production. So sometimes we call it running naked. Like we have to put in the rest of the money ourselves and hoping we can raise some more money from when it's being broadcast.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of content, one question here from Chris. Are there any UK formats, but I suspect any formats? What formats have broken through in China that would give people pitching formats from here hints about what works and what doesn't work? What are the hit shows that people might be thinking, oh, I could emulate that or do something similar to that?
UK formats.
Well, I mean, I would have thought, actually, to be honest, to be useful, could be any formats that we might be able to be thinking about working.
The one came to mind right away is Don't Tell the Bride. It's a good show, and that's the kind of show us as producer love to produce, because it's cheap to produce, and it's real people's story, and it's very engaging subject. So we want to do that. But although in China for entertainment program, the broadcaster and sponsor always want celebrities there, because they feel that's guaranteed viewing. Not necessarily, but we still need to break that barrier. The ones done well, I think the big ones are The Voice. Now there's a comeback of the China's Got Talent.
Yeah, and a lot of dancing, like street dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, street dance shows. But like the taste of Chinese audience, it evolves every day.
Yeah.
So it just changes every day. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like yesterday, they might not like it tomorrow.
Okay, I've got one question here. Could we see a Chinese Love Island? Would a reality show like that work in China? Good. Okay, tell me why would that not work? Or why would it not happen on Chinese television?
Because it's pure. It's like it's like McDonald's to a nutritious meal.
But does that?
Well, also politically, the government.
And I'm sort of going there with that. So is that because it's deemed to be down market and tawdry, therefore it just would not be permitted to happen on Chinese television?
None of it. So many things that wouldn't work in China. Yeah.
So there's this kind of a taste bar and a standards bar which you can't go below. By the way, I think it's a brilliant show, but I can see why.
In China, not the government. It could be branded as vulgar, overexposing too much body, and competition of unhealthy nature, all that, and of course adult content and all that. So so those would tick the wrong boxes.
Okay, and it's just to go on from that, I've got a question from Ed. I think I probably know which Ed. What are the things you can't do in a program? Obviously, Love Island is one, but can you have audience voting? Can voting generate revenue? are there areas you can't go to at all, or
no voting? In China, we can't do public voting.
can't do
The government doesn't like voting. No voting, no cash prize. Those are the absolute restrictions.
Okay, fine. Okay. Oh, they're all gone. What's the best way to pitch to you? Okay, so someone's going to bring a pitch. If someone wants to get into a project with you, this is a wrap-up question, and actually a useful question. What's the best way to pitch? I think, again, hugging a panda obviously comes into it. Getting to know China is important, but if they actually want to pitch you an idea, what's the best way to do it? Who's going to go first? Willie.
The best way of pitching.
Okay, we know each other, but if someone out there who doesn't know you and they want to co-produce or produce with you, what's the best way to make it happen? How should they start?
Well, I think just be quite straightforward. If you've got a fantastic idea, just to talk to your potential partners, and hopefully the proposal will be in Chinese, or maybe both Chinese and English languages. And also be clear about the funding, how much money we are talking about, how much I expect you to contribute, and then what kind of other contributions you would like to have from your potential partners in China. So I think it's quite straightforward and quite like the normal business way of doing this. I don't think there is any kind of special things you should pay very much attention to. And of course, if you know your potential partners pretty well, then it would kind of natural trust in the project. That could make things easier.
Okay, right. And now I'm going to move on to the presentation. So thanks very much for this section. I'm now going to hand over to Jean, who's going to lead us through the next 15-20 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Nick. Yeah, well, I'm delighted to be able to bring some of the top Chinese scripted content producers from China. And with us today, I would like to introduce 4 companies. The representative of the companies are sitting at the front row, and I will and they could stand up when I introduce them to be acknowledged. And so that later on, if you want to talk to them on opportunities, you can approach them. So so the first company I would like to introduce is Shandong Film and TV Media International. So they are one of the they were incorporated a few years ago, but they are on the back of they're wholly owned by Shandong Film and TV Production, which was established in 1977, and in the last 40 years they have produced over 5,500 TV episodes and as well as films in China. And so some of their most successful TV series have achieved staggering, amazing success in China. Take an example of Nirvana in Fire. This series alone achieved 15 billion viewings. That's in China alone, not including YouTube and pirated version. So they are one of the most extremely successful film and TV studios in China. So with us today, we have the managing director, Christine Zhang. If you could just quickly say hi to everyone. And so she's here representing the company, and they are looking for opportunities to collaborate with the international media world. And before we go into the exact kind of projects they're looking for, we could have a look at a VT of the production they have done. The last film that we saw is a feature-length film, animated, Monkey King Hero is Back, that has grossed $153 million in China. So Shandong Film and TV are here at the festival looking for co-financing and co-production opportunities with UK and international companies, looking for partners in global distribution, as well as international licensing and acquisitions of intellectual properties. So please do come to Christine afterwards if you have such opportunities to offer. The next company I'd like to introduce is Beijing Zhongkai Guanghui Culture and Development Limited. We can call it Chs Media, just to make it easier. And it's one of the most leading Chinese production companies in China. It has won top 10 production companies of China. And with us today is Ms. Rebecca Jiang. And she's the vice president of Beijing Chs Media. And she's actually have a background of filmmaking because you were participating in award-winning feature films such as The Kite Runner, The Painted Veil, The Curse of Golden Flowers, etc. Some really fantastic films. But you're also interested in looking for TV series co-production and co-financing opportunities. We could run a quick VT of some of the work your company has done. Okay, so that last one, The Longest Day in Chang'an, is actually one that gives give us a taste of the quality of the premium TV drama in China. And that drama alone, when released this year in June 27th, had already reached 100 million views online alone. So Beijing Chs is looking at the festival for co-production opportunities, mainly in TV series, TV drama, and as they have a lot of content, they're looking for distribution partners who could help them to distribute those content globally, and they're also looking to acquire good stories and to license good IP as well. The next company, Chs Media. This is another leading company in China, and they specialize in film, TV, distribution, and advertising, and they even have their talent management and have their animation studios as well. So they're represented by Ms. Xia over here. So and they are here on the market hoping to develop new opportunities as well. So we could have a quick run through of their VTs. So actually, yeah, we're hoping that today by playing these VT, it gives the audience a taste of what's out there in China, from Chinese costume drama, war drama, to animated series, feature films, as well as the last one, we call it domestic drama, which is more about people's relations and dynamics. So the company Chs Media at the festival here are looking for, again, co-production opportunities on China stories globally told. And also all the content that you just saw, they're all available for global distribution. So if you're interested to be their partner to do that, please do approach them. And again, they're also looking to acquire good international UK stories to make into TV drama. So, and the one that you saw just now, the Dayu, the animated film with those interesting monsters, is called Dayu, and that's a production of Blue Star Media, who sadly could not come because of visa issues, but that's also available for distribution purposes. So that's the Great. Chinese slate of the companies we are happy to bring to you today.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that's fantastic. I think that what that says to me is the extraordinary range, diversity and quality. You know, it's a huge market. I know from experience it's not the easiest market to break into, but it is a big market and there's a lot of business to be done there. And it's only going to increase. So I'd encourage you all to go there. Obviously, compete with us. Don't compete too hard. That would be great. But just to wrap up, I think, well, firstly, I've got some thanks to do. Thanks to our fantastic panel for coming and sharing their insights. And I need to thank Gina and Zesper as the sponsors of this session as well. So thank you. I want to thank Pascal Dalton, who's lurking in the shadows somewhere, our producer, who's put this all together and handled it also very, very professionally. Wherever you are. And lastly, to the panel, one word. If people leaving here now, what are they going to say? What's the one word they should bear in mind when they want to go and pitch and produce in China? Julia, what's the word? What would you suggest?
Yes, again, patience.
Patience. Yeah. What, people not answering emails, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Embrace the change. Yeah. Patience.
Yeah. Willie?
Understanding.
What, in terms of understanding the culture, understanding the business?
Culture, business, people, the country.
Yeah, flexibility.
Flexibility. Yeah, and I think my one word would be friends. You've got to have friends and partners if you're going to do business in China. You've got to listen. You mustn't be arrogant. You mustn't assume you know best, because you probably don't. So I think it's, make friends and then stick with them, and then you can build a business, in the medium and long term from there. That's what I'd say. Anyway, thank you very much to our panel.
Thank you.